Welcome back, everyone, to the Album Quest. This is the series where we're pushing on with our, let's be honest, highly subjective search for the greatest album of all time.
Yep, and we do that by diving deep into the judgments made round by round. Today we're unpacking the results from, well, a pretty interesting one. Round 1, Group 206, judged by Greenstrokes.
Right, and this group was a real mix, wasn't it? We had two modern studio albums going up against two very different compilation albums, sort of a clash of eras and approaches.
Absolutely, and the stakes, as always in this quest, they're high. Top 2 albums move on to round 2. The bottom 2, well, they're out. Their journey ends right here.
So the contenders for Group 206 were Feelin Good, that's a various artists compilation, then Taproot's Blue Sky Research.
Then Hip Young Guitar Slinger, credited to Jimmy Page and various artists. We'll definitely get into that one. And finally, the big one, Coldplay's A Head Full of Dreams.
And the title we gave this episode kind of gives the game away, doesn't it? Jimmy Page doesn't even need to show up to see off the competition.
Huh. Yeah, it hints at the winner, but maybe more importantly, it flags up the controversies and the whole historical angle around that Hip Young Guitar Slinger album.
Exactly. We're going to really get into the reasoning, the judgments that led to two pretty massive contemporary albums getting knocked out by, well, what are essentially curated history lessons.
It really forces you to think about the criteria for this album quest. You know, is it polished production? Is it historical weight? Is it just a vibe?
Let's find out. We should probably start at the bottom, right? With the albums that didn't make the cut.
Sounds good. Let's look at those studio albums first.
Okay, so kicking things off, the album that finished dead last in 4th place was Taproot's Blue Sky Research. This was their 3rd album, came out in 2005.
Right, and the reviewer, Greenstrokes, started off by saying it's definitely a step up from their first 2 albums, Gift and Welcome.
Which sounds okay at first, but when you read between the lines...
Exactly. It implies the bar was set pretty low to begin with, doesn't it? So being a step up doesn't automatically mean it's actually good. It just means it's better than something potentially quite disappointing.
Yeah, it's like the classic backhanded compliment, isn't it? But the real killer criticism, the thing that seemed to sink it, was about the actual sound, the feel of it.
Yeah, the reviewer found it a bit too shouty and angsty. Now, considering this was 2005, kind of post-peak nu metal, maybe that sound felt a bit forced.
That's interesting. Like, the initial wave of that sound felt raw, maybe a genuine reaction to things. But perhaps by 2005, it was starting to feel like just going through the motions, a genre expectation.
I think that's exactly what the reviewer was getting at. They actually wrote, and this is pretty direct, someone needs to tell the singer that you don't need to be angry to make good quality hard rock.
That's not just saying I don't like shouting. That's questioning the artistic choice itself, right?
Yeah.
Suggesting the anger maybe didn't feel authentic, or maybe it was just there because, well, that's what the genre dictated.
Precisely. It comes across as a critique of the reason for the anger. If the core emotion feels, I don't know, manufactured or just derivative, then the whole thing lacks substance. It doesn't connect.
So in the context of the album quest, it's not just about being loud or quiet. It's about whether that volume, that intensity, feels earned, justified. And here, apparently, it didn't.
Yeah, the listener is left cold. If the main thing is this rage, and you don't buy the rage, what's left? According to the review, not much substance.
Okay, but hang on. To be completely fair, the review wasn't all negative, was it? There were a couple of moments that got singled out.
No, that's true. We should definitely mention those. Specific tracks like She and Violent Seas got a positive mention. But the biggest compliment, interestingly, was saved for the track Calling.
Ah, yes. What did they compare it to?
Tool. It was described as Tool-like, which, in that world of heavier, more complex rock, that's pretty high praise.
Definitely. Tool is sort of the gold standard for that kind of intricate, thoughtful hard rock. So even a glimpse of that suggests there was some potential there, maybe buried under the angst.
It does seem that way. Like maybe moments of real musical ambition were peeking through, but those moments clearly weren't enough to save the whole album experience.
And wasn't there a weird detail about a track title?
Yes. The only other specific kudos given was just for the title, Forever Endeavor.
Just the title, not the song.
Apparently just the title, which, suggests the wordplay was maybe more memorable than the music itself. That's pretty damning when you think about it.
Wow. Okay, so points for a pun, but still last place.
Yep. The final verdict was basically not too bad and not too good at the same time. That kind of lukewarm middle ground feeling.
Yeah.
It just doesn't cut it in the album quest. So a solid 4th place finish for Taproot?
Right. So The kind of shouty, maybe not so authentic rock album is out. Let's move up the ladder then to third place. And this is where it gets really interesting because the band eliminated here is massive. Coldplay with A Head Full of Dreams.
Yeah, this is a big scalp, isn't it?
Yep.
And the irony, like you said before, is kind of perfect. Taproot failed for maybe being too intense or performatively intense. Coldplay seems to have failed for the opposite reason.
What was the description? Wishy-washy.
Wishy-washy and unconvincing. Yeah,
Yeah.
those words really jump out,
Yep.
especially for a band like Coldplay, known for these huge stadium-filling anthems.
Wishy-washy. It just suggests a lack of focus, doesn't it? Like they weren't quite sure what they wanted the album to be. How does a band that's successful end up sounding unconvinced?
Well, you could argue as the potential downside of trying to appeal to absolutely everyone, everywhere, all the time, maybe trying to tick every box, every radio format, dilutes the core message. And this leads directly to the big structural problem the reviewer identified.
Ah, the glue problem. Okay, explain that. What's the glue an album needs?
Right. The glue is, well, it's that feeling of cohesion, isn't it?
Mhm.
The thing that makes an album feel like a single piece of work, not just a collection of songs. It could be a sound, a theme, an emotional arc, something that holds it all together.
And Head Full of Dreams didn't have it.
According to this review, no. It lacked the vibrancy or that essential glue needed to keep you engaged between the obvious hit singles.
So it's like the album fails as an album. The singles might work on their own, pop up on a playlist, sound great on the radio, but the experience of listening start to finish just falls apart.
That seems to be exactly the issue. It feels like an album built for the streaming age, maybe. A collection of potential singles rather than a journey. You got these big, polished moments, but the connective tissue between them is weak.
The review did acknowledge the high points, though. I remember seeing mentions of the big singles.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The strong middle section got highlighted, specifically Hymn for the Weekend and Adventure of a Lifetime. I mean, those were huge, undeniable hits.
Right, stadium shakers.
And the closer Up and Up was mentioned as being interesting, and the collaboration with Tove Lo, Fun, was described as merely okay.
And okay is basically the kiss of death here, isn't it?
Pretty much. In the album quest, okay gets you eliminated. You need to be compelling, memorable, significant, not just okay.
So let's recap the failures here. Taproot. Too much perceived anger, lacked authenticity. Coldplay. Too polished, too broad, lacked cohesion or glue. Both ultimately failed to convince the reviewer, just in completely different ways.
Yeah, it's fascinating. One failed by shouting too loud, the other by maybe tried to please too much.
Yeah.
And the fact that Coldplay, this global phenomenon, got knocked out by a compilation album, well, that sets up our next section perfectly.
It really does. It tells you something profound when a curated collection of old songs feels more cohesive than a brand new studio album from one of the biggest bands in the world.
Exactly. It suggests that if the band can't provide that internal coherence, that glue, maybe a well-chosen playlist or compilation can actually do the job better.
Okay, let's dive into that. The album that beat Coldplay, taking second place and moving on, was the compilation Feelin' Good. Just a collection of tracks by various artists. How did that happen?
Well, I think the clue is right there in the title, Feeling Good. Unlike A Head Full of Dreams, which maybe tried to create a feeling but felt unfocused, this compilation set out to deliver one specific vibe, and apparently it succeeded.
So the reviewer felt it lived up to its name.
Yeah, the comment was it retained a decent feel-good vibe throughout. Consistency was key. Where Coldplay felt wishy-washy, this collection, despite drawing from different artists and eras, felt unified by that central emotion.
That's a really powerful point for the album quest, isn't it? It suggests that sometimes emotional consistency, even curated after the fact, can trump the technical unity of a single artist's album if that album lacks a clear purpose.
Absolutely. It's like the compilation delivered exactly what it promised on the tin. Feel-good music. And the quality of the tracks chosen was obviously a huge factor, too. This wasn't just random filler.
No, the list of songs mentioned is seriously impressive. It's like a who's who of feel-good classics.
Exactly. Let's run through a few mentioned in the review just to get the flavor. You've got Casey and the Sunshine Band with That's the Way I Like It, pure disco joy right there.
Yeah, can't argue with that one. What else?
Then you've got Harry Nilsson's Everybody's Talking.
Yeah.
Totally different genre, that folk pop sound, but still maintains that kind of wistful, yet somehow optimistic feel.
Yeah, I can see that. Different sounds, same sort of underlying mood.
Right. Then there's the sheer pop infectiousness of Herman's Hermits with I'm Into Something Good. And contrasting that, you get the soulful energy of the Four Tops doing Loco and Acapulco.
Okay, so real variety in terms of style, but the vibe holds true.
Precisely. And then anchoring it all, you have these absolute cornerstones of positive music.
The weather's lovely.
Yeah. And Jimmy Cliff's version of I Can See Clearly Now. Just pure uplift.
Okay, when you list those tracks side by side, you can totally see why the reviewer felt this compilation had more going for it than the Coldplay album. It's just hit after hit, all contributing to that one central feeling.
And that brings us back to the reviewer's final judgment on this pairing. It wasn't just a slight preference, it was quite forceful.
What was the exact wording again? Something about it being criminal.
Yeah. Greens to Rock said placing Coldplay's lackluster album ahead of this collection would be criminal. That's strong. It implies that the compilation wasn't just preferable subjectively, but objectively better in terms of musical merit and impact.
Wow. So the takeaway here seems to be, if a modern album feels unfocused or lacks conviction, a really well-curated compilation offering undeniable classics and a consistent mood is a serious threat. Authenticity of vibe matters.
And maybe proven, time-tested quality matters more than just being new and having a big budget. Feeling Good delivered on its promise. It moves on to round 2.
Okay, which brings us finally to the winner of Group 206, the album that not only progressed, but took the top spot, knocking out both modern albums and the Feel Good compilation. We're talking about Hip Young Guitar Slinger, credited to Jimmy Page and various artists.
Right, and this is where the story gets really fascinating, because this album won not just on musical merit, but almost as a historical document, despite some, let's call them ambiguities, surrounding its core premise.
Yeah, let's unpack that whole Jimmy Page session man thing. The title, Hip Young Guitar Slinger, and the way it was likely marketed suggests Jimmy Page, pre-Led Zeppelin fame, played guitar on every single track here, right?
That's certainly the implication. And look, Page was an incredibly busy session guitarist in London in the early to mid-60s. He played on tons of records, often uncredited. It was a huge part of his development.
But the reality is a bit murkier than the album title suggests.
A lot murkier. The sheer volume of work he did means even Page himself apparently couldn't always remember definitively which sessions he played on, or if his particular take ended up being the one used on the final master. The record-keeping wasn't always meticulous back then.
So compiling an album claiming these are all tracks featuring Session Man Page is difficult, maybe impossible to verify 100%.
Exactly. And in fact, the reviewer points out, based on other sources, that there are specific tracks on this compilation where Page didn't actually play, even though the album implies he did.
Okay, this is crucial for the album quest. An album can win its group even if its central marketing hook is factually questionable.
It seems so. If the underlying music is strong enough and the overall package offers something else of significant value in this case, historical insight.
Let's get specific about those discrepancies. Which tracks were mentioned as not featuring Page?
Okay, so according to the review's research, Page apparently did not play on the Kinks track, Bald-Headed Woman, which is included here. He definitely played on other Kinks stuff, but maybe not this specific one.
Interesting. So close, but not quite. Any others?
Yeah, also the Lancashire's track, We'll Sing in the Sunshine. Apparently Page wasn't on that one either.
So the compilers were maybe casting a slightly wider net than just confirmed Page sessions?
It seems likely.
Yeah.
Maybe including tracks from artists or sessions he was associated with, even if he wasn't on that specific recording.
Yeah.
But then just to highlight the complexity.
Yes.
The review also confirms that Page definitely did play on another track by the Lancashires included on the album. Was She Tall?
Okay, so it's a real mixed bag. Some confirmed Page tracks, some likely not Page tracks, all bundled together under his name.
Pretty much. It looks like a commercial decision, using the Page name decades later to sell a collection of 60s tracks, knowing that the music itself is fantastic regardless of his presence on every single cut.
And this is where the reviewer makes that key shift, isn't it? They basically say, look, whether Page is on every track or not, it doesn't actually matter that much. Why?
Because the real value isn't about verifying Page's session checklist. It's about the music itself and what it represents. The reviewer calls it a delightful 2-disc collection of early mid-60s British blues. It becomes a time capsule.
So it stops being a Jimmy Page album and becomes a snapshot of the 60s British blues explosion album.
Exactly. It captures that moment when American blues and rock and roll hit the UK and ignited something totally new. The reviewer notes how it showcases these breathtaking new sounds and artists emerging then. That historical context became far more compelling than Coldplay's polished but wishy-washy sound, or even the consistent vibe of Feelin' Good.
And the album does still contain genuine, confirmed Jimmy Page session work, right? Which adds to its credibility, even with the questionable tracks.
Oh, absolutely. And the review highlights some of these key tracks where Page's involvement is undisputed, working with really foundational British blues acts.
Like who? Which specific tracks were mentioned?
Well, there's John Mayall's Blues Breakers, absolutely crucial band on I'm Your Witch Doctor. That's a confirmed Page session.
Okay, yeah, Mayall's band was like a finishing school for British rock royalty.
Totally. Then there's Wayne Gibson and the Dynamic Sound doing See You Later, Alligator, and also the First Gear with their version of The In Crowd. Both feature Page.
So having those confirmed tracks anchors the collection in genuine history, even if some other inclusions are debatable. It proves the album is dealing with significant music from that era.
Precisely. It captures the energy, the sound that was bubbling up, and would eventually lead to bands like, well, Led Zeppelin.
Right.
And the reviewer also commented on the album's structure, how it builds.
How so?
Apparently, the second half of Disc 2 shifts gears, becoming very bluesy. It features more from John Mayall, this time credited as John Mayall and the Heartbreakers, and also tracks from Eric Clapton and the All-Stars.
Ah, so it kind of follows the evolution of the scene within the compilation itself, from the early rock and roll influenced stuff towards a purer blues sound.
It seems that way. It's smart curation. It takes you on a bit of a journey, ending with Cyril Davies and the All-Stars doing the classic Not Fade Away.
Okay, I can see why this one now. It's got the tunes, it's got the history, it's got a narrative arc. What was the reviewer's final personal reaction?
It was really positive. They said they wasn't expecting to love this album as much as they did, and credited it directly with having further educated and enhanced my love of early rock music.
And that right there feels like a core principle of the album quest, doesn't it? An album that doesn't just entertain, but actually educates you, deepens your appreciation of music history. That's incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. That element of discovery, of learning something, of having your perspective shifted, that's powerful. It seems that educational value, combined with the undeniable quality of the music, Page or no Page on every track, completely overwhelmed the modern contenders.
A decisive victory for history and curation.
Definitely.
Okay, let's wrap this up by looking at the final scorecard for Group 206 again and summarizing the big takeaways from this whole exercise.
Sound good. So the final rankings were first place, Progressing, Hip Young Guitar Slinger, Jimmy Page Various. Second place, also Progressing, Feelin' Good, Various.
And eliminated.
Third place, Eliminated, A Head Full of Dreams, Coldplay. And fourth place, Eliminated, Blue Sky Research, Taproot.
So the big picture, 2 compilations are through, 2 modern studio albums are out. What does this tell us about the values being rewarded in this album quest, at least in this particular group?
Well, I think it shows that contemporary albums really need to bring something special to the table when judged against history. They need either that raw, undeniable creative spark which Taproot may be aimed for but missed, or they need to be a perfectly executed, cohesive statement which Coldplay failed at, ending up wishy-washy.
Yeah, Taproot's shouty angst felt inauthentic or unnecessary, leading to a low-quality assessment. And Coldplay's attempt at broad appeal just resulted in a lack of focus, that missing glue.
Meanwhile, the compilations delivered guaranteed value. Feelin' Good gave you exactly what it promised, a consistent, uplifting mood built from proven classic songs. No risks, just reliable quality.
And Hip Young Guitar Slinger. Well, it offered something even more profound. Historical context. A journey into the roots of rock music. The fact that it educated the reviewer enhanced their love for the genre. That was clearly the deciding factor.
It really underscores a key theme in the quest, I think, that enduring power, the ability of music to capture a time, a feeling, a cultural shift, often outweighs slick modern production if that production feels hollow. The learning aspect from the Page compilation was huge.
So it's not just about what sounds good now. It's about what lasts, what teaches us something, what feels authentic, whether that authenticity comes from an artist's vision or a curator's successful vibe check.
Exactly. And the ranking really emphasizes that engaging with music history, like the reviewer did with Hip Young Guitar Slinger, can be a richer, more rewarding experience than just passively consuming current mainstream releases that might lack depth or conviction. In a way, it's a vote for the album as curated statement, even when it's a historical compilation.
A really telling result then. Too much anger failed, too little conviction failed, but consistency and history lessons succeeded.
A perfect summary of Group 206. It really throws down the gauntlet to modern artists in this quest.
And it leaves us with that fascinating final thought, doesn't it? Stemming from the hip young guitar slinger win. If the historical importance and sheer musical quality of a collection like that can make the factual accuracy of its marketing, like whether Jimmy Page really played on every single track, seem almost irrelevant to the reviewer, then how much does the legend, the star name, actually matter compared to the music itself when we're talking about enduring value? If the art stands up on its own, does the absolute biographical truth around it become secondary?
That's a great question to chew on. Something for you, the listener, to consider as you continue your own album quest. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Group 206.